Welcome everyone, I'm Spiro, thanks for tuning in. And joining me today is Dr. Andrew Kaufman, who is a natural healing consultant, an inventor, public speaker, forensic psychiatrist, and expert witness. He completed his psychiatric training at Duke University Medical Center after graduating from the Medical University of South Carolina and has a BS from MIT in molecular biology. He has conducted and published original research and lectured, supervised, and mentored medical students, residents, and fellows in all psychiatric specialties. He has been qualified as an expert witness in local, state, and federal courts. He has held leadership positions in academic medicine and professional organizations. He ran a startup company to develop a medical device that he patented and invented. Now, I'd like to get more into the testing, as we've had many questions from the viewers considering the fact that the testing will likely be used to control people's movements and ability to interact in society. Now, I have a question here from @Thomas P. Webster. Many of us want to know about the actual test for COVID-19. What does the test actually test for specifically? Will the test show positive for any coronavirus? And how reliable is this testing? And I think that these are great questions here, because it's my understanding that the test was actually created long before this new or novel coronavirus came onto the world stage.
Well, yeah, so the test is kind of a big quagmire, and it's definitely not reliable. And in fact, we don't really know exactly what it's testing for. So the main test that is being used is this PCR test, or technically RT-PCR, which is used to amplify small strands or small amounts of strands of RNA. That means that it's not testing for a virus. And in fact, there's been no virus that has been isolated from any samples of any patients with a respiratory illness. They have made claims as such, but I can certainly explain in detail that they didn't actually find a virus. But the way I understand they developed this PCR test is that they took samples of lung fluid from some sick individuals initially in China, and they basically reconstructed a sequence of RNA through a process where they combine short strands of RNA by a method called alignment, and sort of reconstruct what they call a viral genome. Now, normally, if you wanted to obtain the genome of a virus, right, and this has been done, for example, for bacteriophages, which are perhaps misrepresented but have been called a virus that infects bacteria, what they would do is isolate and purify the bacteriophage particles. And then once they're in a pure state with no contamination, they could then do a chemical characterization of the structure of those particles. And that would include extracting the genetic material and performing a full sequence of the genetic material to obtain an entire genome. And that's been done for bacteriophages. But that's not what has been done for this SARS-CoV-2 virus that they allege to have identified in these studies. Instead, what they've done is taken an impure sample of lung fluid and not purified it at all, but just used PCR probes looking for specific sequences that they've already identified as being related to viruses, and then using that to reconstruct bits of DNA and combining them into a model that they say represents the genome or the entire set of genetic material of this virus. But since they didn't obtain it from a purified viral particle, there's really no way to know exactly what the source of that genetic material is. But most of the genetic material that would be present in the lung fluid of an ill individual would be our own genetic material, and also that of other microorganisms that normally live in our body or were involved in an infectious process in those people. So these could easily represent strands of RNA that are human and that are bacterial. But the thing is, we just really don't know, because it's never been compared to something that was obtained directly from a purified virus. So it's measuring these RNA strands of unknown significance. And the way that they allege that this is a coronavirus family, and in fact they say it's related to SARS-CoV-1, which is the virus that they used the same procedures, by the way, to say was the cause of the SARS outbreak in 2003. So they basically looked at the sequence that they reconstructed by this artificial method and compared it to the sequence that they reconstructed by the same artificial method from the SARS-CoV-1 virus, and say that they're almost 80% identical. Therefore, they are part of the same coronavirus family or they're related. Now, just to contrast that, when you compare the entire genetic sequence of humans versus chimpanzees, they're 96% identical. So that's much higher. And yet you wouldn't say that we are chimpanzees or the chimpanzees are humans. So they're relating these sequences together that are reconstructed arbitrarily and saying because of this 80% identity that it's a coronavirus and related to SARS-CoV-1. So it's a huge stretch by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, there's no way really to confirm that this is a real entity or really related to something else that also we don't know if it's a real entity at all. So when you subject yourself to this test, you're basically, and this is without considering any of the pitfalls of the PCR method itself, right, which there are some. So even without considering that, you just don't know exactly what you're measuring. And so in some field tests where they've tried to use mathematical models to calculate an error rate, they come up with a number like 80% false positive. So that means, 4 out of 5 people with a positive test don't even have what they say that they have.